So we all saw this week Nigel Farage becoming leader of Reform Party UK has really boosted them up in the polls. They're only 2 points behind the Conservative Party at the moment, polling at 17%, the Tories on 19%. This is really unheard of for a fringe party to be polling the same as the Conservatives. Nigel Farage has obviously boosted this vote and is very popular. Maybe not so much with some, but with 17% of the population of the UK, he's very popular. Now, this got me thinking, what would a Reform Party UK government look like? Now, obviously, they're not going to win the next election. We know this. But Farage has got this 5-year plan. And if the Tory party do get completely decimated like they might possibly do, Reform could be there to become the prominent right-wing party. And in 5 years' time, they could be a force to be reckoned with. So love him or hate him, Nigel Farage is very, very popular with a lot of people. And I want to know whether people generally actually know what Reform Party policies are. They may like Nigel Farage. He's a popular, well-spoken person when it comes to TV debates. He's an incredible personality. But do people actually know the policies behind Reform Party UK? So the four big main pledges from Reform Party is lower tax, net zero immigration, zero waiting lists, and cheaper energy. Now, obviously, immigration is the big pull for Reform, isn't it? That's what the majority of people are coming to Reform Party for, because they're unhappy about immigration. And I don't want to dive too much into immigration. There's legitimate conversations to be had about immigration, but that's not what I'm interested in this video, because immigration is the carrot on the stick, really, isn't it? To bring you over to Reform Party. I'm more interested in what is underneath their policies that maybe people that come over because they're unhappy about immigration don't know so much about. So let's start with healthcare. All frontline NHS and social care staff to pay zero basic rate tax for 3 years. This will become a common theme across a lot of these policies for Reform Party. Tax cuts. Tax cuts, tax cut. I was just wondering, has anyone ever tried that in recent history? Not sure. But this one's the biggie here. Tax relief of 20% on all private healthcare and insurance. We will incentivise people who can afford to pay more. This will improve care for all of us. Pressure on the NHS is significantly reduced. Again, it sounds logical, doesn't it? Simple terms. Oh, people that can afford private healthcare, they can pay for private. And then people that can't will use the NHS. This is a massive acceleration on the privatisation of the NHS. I would be very wary of this. If you're a Reform voter and you believe in the NHS, you believe that the NHS should be free at the point of use, you believe that no matter what your status, race, gender, wealth, everyone in this country should get the same level of healthcare. If those are things that you care about, I'd be very concerned about this policy by Reform Party. It's a blatant move to private healthcare that will slowly ravel where more and more people are using private healthcare. Less emphasis, less revenue, less funds, less resources are given to the NHS, and slowly it just moves to private healthcare. The pure nature of this policy means that private healthcare will be far more superior to the NHS. If they were at the same level, why would anyone pay for private healthcare if the treatment in the NHS is just as good? This policy means there will be a vast drop in standards in the NHS. But there is some stuff I agree with on here. Doctor and nurse training, end training caps for all UK medical students, write off student fees pro rata, train our citizens for free to become nurses and doctors. Obviously makes sense. One of the reasons we're so dependent on foreign labour to fill vacancies in the NHS is because we don't train our own citizens for free. But this is the common theme with these policies. There's real good stuff in here. There is genuinely good stuff in this Reform Party manifesto. But hidden are the stealth private healthcare. Put patients in charge with a new NHS voucher scheme. Patients will receive a voucher for private treatment if they can't see a GP within 3 days. Again, sounds good, doesn't it? Oh, you can't see a GP within 3 days? Get them onto private. Until everyone starts realising that private healthcare is a much better standard to the NHS because they've been neglecting it, not putting the resources in. People by their droves just suddenly shift over to private healthcare and abandon the NHS. How about we just make the NHS where you can see a GP within 3 days? How about we do that? If it's possible in the private sector, it's possible in the NHS with the right resources. Now, be under no illusions, Farage is enticing you in here. He's enticing you in with examples of France and Germany where they balance a bit of public and private healthcare. There's a legitimate conversation to be had here about NHS reform and the role of the private sector in the NHS. But be under no illusions, this guy is enticing you in for private American style healthcare. That is what he wants. He entices you in, he lies to you, and then he does the complete opposite. He done it with Brexit. Do you remember the Brexit referendum? Oh, don't worry, every company will be able to trade exactly the same with Europe as they did before. Businesses won't suffer. The economy will actually be better. What happened? Everything's worse. And he's doing exactly the same with healthcare. He's enticing you in with great models from Europe and France and Germany. But what he wants is American style private healthcare where healthcare is unaffordable for the poor, where people saddle themselves with healthcare debt. When they get cancer, they have to remortgage their homes. This is the world that he wants. This is the style of healthcare that he wants.
7.4% of U.S. residents face catastrophic healthcare bills each year. That's more than double the next closest country.
100 million people in this country currently have some kind of healthcare debt. That's about 40% of adults.
U.S. medical debt totaled at least $195 billion in 2019. Having insurance doesn't always insulate people in the U.S. from debt. Over 90% of the U.S. population has some kind of health insurance, but medical debt is still a persistent issue.
So the other big one on there is energy, and most of this comes straight down to just ignoring that climate change is a thing. Scrap net zero and related subsidies. Scrap annual 10 billion of renewable energy subsidies. Cheap, secure energy. We must use the energy treasure under our feet. Start fast-tracking licenses of North Sea gas and oil. Grant shale gas licenses on test sites for 2 years. So forgetting that climate change is a thing, just completely, I mean, they are just completely skeptical on climate change, and ramp up oil and gas. Shale gas underneath our feet. So fracking, we're talking about fracking here. You ever seen that video in the United States of that house that was nearby a fracking site that could set their water on fire? That's what we're in for with a Reform Party government. And this is always my point with people that are skeptical about climate change. Okay, fair enough, you want to be skeptical about climate change, but surely you understand that fossil fuels are not finite. They will eventually run out. We need to transform to renewable energies. Doesn't matter if you care about the climate change or not. We need to transition. Fossil fuels will not be around forever. I do always find it interesting that those that are concerned about immigration, and like I started with the video, you can have your legitimate concerns about immigration, but those that are concerned about immigration are not concerned about climate change. The most obvious driving force for immigration in the future will be climate change. When parts of sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East become unlivable, people will move north. I don't know why people that are concerned about immigration are not concerned about this stuff, because they listen to people like Julia Hartley-Brewer that puts out a tweet that says, oh, summertime, I had to go to bed with a hot water bottle tonight. What's this climate change? Maybe they should actually spend some time in some countries around the equator and experience what their summers are like. I was in the Philippines this year in the centre of Manila during one of Asia's biggest heat waves, where children are coming into restaurants begging owners for bottles of water. What do you think those folks are going to do when it comes completely unbearable to live in their countries? They're going to descend north. And now we get on to tax cuts. The real reason that your Richard Tices are setting up a party like this. This is what they truly care about. This is the country that they want for Britain. Lift the income tax start point to $20,000 per year. Cut energy taxes and beat the cost of living crisis. Cut residential stamp duty. Abolish the VAT tourist tax. Abolish the grief tax. Reduce the main corporation tax rate from 25% to 20%. Tax cuts, tax cuts, tax cuts, tax. It's pure Liz Truss economics. This is exactly what Liz Truss done 2 years ago when she crashed the economy. But the main difference being is Liz Truss wanted to fund those tax cuts by borrowing. Reform Party wanted to fund those tax cuts by decimating public services, by cutting public spending to the bone. And this is my overriding point of the video here. I think a lot of people are coming over to Reform Party because they like what they're saying about immigration, and there's perfectly legitimate conversations to be had about immigration. But what a lot of people don't know, I think, is their economic policy. If you're going to vote for reform, you also need to know that that does mean libertarian style economics, unregulated capitalism. It means private healthcare, private education, unregulated drilling for oil and gas, setting fire to your taps. It means a world where the poor get no help, no health care, no decent style education, a dog-eat-dog world where you have to claw and fight your way up to the top. Now, a lot of people like this style of economics, and if you're on board with it, sure, vote for reform. I know a lot of people that think libertarian economics is actually the best way to go. Everyone keeps more of their own money because you have very, very low tax, very, very low government involvement, and the free market supplies everything. Personally, in my view, I don't think it works. I think it just tramples all over the poor. We see it in America with no healthcare for the poor, no opportunities for the poor. But if that's your thing, great. But I think a lot of reform voters are not on board with that. And I've often said there is not a political party in this country that is socially conservative but economically left-wing. And I think a lot of people are crying out for that. Even myself, I have a lot of conservative social views. I think the majority of reform voters are not on board with this style of ultra right-wing economics. And you can ignore the Reform Party as just a fringe party. Oh, what are they going to do? They will only get one MP. But if the Conservative Party do get absolutely decimated, Nigel Farage gets a seat, defects to the Tories, and then basically turns the Tory Party into Reform, they will be a force to be reckoned with. Anyway, folks, give me your thoughts, please, in the comments section. If you like the video, click a like. If you haven't subscribed, you can subscribe up top. There'll be another video. You can check that out as well. Till next time, take care.